So, in this tutorial we will look at how to create hoses and how to make them bend when objects move or rotate in the model. And we will specifically look at these a little bit thicker hoses that are on this side, because typically in the game these hoses should bend when this cedar object moves like this, or potentially in this direction. So we will look at that. And in order to do that, we will start by just removing these hoses. So I'll move them out of the way for now. And in order to make life a little bit easier, I'm going to isolate the areas that we are going to work with. So we're going to work with these two connection points for the two thicker hoses that should go to these thicker connection points. So in order to isolate them, I will just do something like this. And was that good? Yeah, I selected just those faces and I will extract them like so, and that have given us a new object for that part, and we will do the same here. I will select the faces of this and isolate them. Combine them. Edit, delete all by type history. So now we have that object, oops, and that object, and we will remove the rest. So we will create two hoses from these points. And the way you can do this is by going to curves and surfaces and this little pen to actually draw a line. And it's always best to draw a line or any 2D object to actually do them in a 2D view. So we will select one of the 2D views. In this case, this is my perspective view. Obviously, in this case, I think this view fits me quite well to draw the sort of connection line. We will use this pen, as I said, and I'll just make as nice line as possible, like that. And if I'm sort of doing a little bit like that when I draw it, I can always go to curves and smooth, and it will sort of stretch it out a bit. So I can select this one and do curves, smooth, and it will be a little bit smoother. So that's typically how I would like the hose to go in this plane. And if we go to the next plane, which will be this one, we will select all of this, including our line, and make sure that we have it. Move the line. Oops, not move everything, just move the line over to where I want it. I will now select control vertices, which will show me the points of this one. And I want to go from basically this connection point up to this connection point. So I need to make a little bend of this. So I'll move these control points. Now let's look at this in the 3D view, and we can see that we have something acceptable. Now let's make sure that this line actually connects to the center vertex of this. So I go to control vertices again and select that one, hold down the V key and move it, and it will attach to the center. Now it's good there. We will look up here. We are pretty close, so we will select this one, hold down the V key, move it to the center, and maybe I should adjust so. Quite acceptable. So now we have the line which will be the center of the hose. So this defines the sort of how the hose will go. Now we need to define the radius of the hose, and that should obviously be the same as the radius of this connection point. So I'll make a circle up here, a NURBS circle, and this is what it looks like. It's obviously the wrong size and in the wrong direction and everything, but we can fix that. Oops, that was, well, we can do like that. So now it's in the correct direction. So I'll hold down the V key and move it up here. So now I know it's centered to here. I hold down the V key and just move it, and it will snap to vertices. And I'll just let it go once it's snapped to the center vertex of this line. Now we need to scale it so that we get it to the size that we want. And I also need to rotate it a slightly bit. There's our circle. And the size then. So let's increase it a little bit to get about the same. So now we have the circle and we have the line. What we will do now is we will select the circle and then shift select the line and go to surfaces extrude, and we will select the option box first so that we can set some things. What's important to so that we actually get the hose is to have the style as tube over here. We also want to create polygons out of this, and not NURBS or Bezier or something, but polygons. And I also want quads instead of triangles. So those are the settings that I'm using. Now we want to define how many sections that we want in U and V space. So U space is how many sections that we want in around like circumference of this. So this is 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And bumped it to 11. Oops, that's not 11. That's 11. And extrude. And now we have. So now the number of faces or edges or vertices around the circumference is actually matching what the other object has. Now, if I really want them to match, I need to rotate something, and I probably should rotate this little piece so that I can match up the corners of this with that, but we'll leave this for now. Our task here was to create the hose and to make it bend nicely. So we have done that. We have done our hose. Now we will make it bend when either of this side of the hose moves or when this side of the hose moves. And in order to do that, we will create something called skinning, which comes from the animation industry and the game industry. When you make a character, you actually create a skin of the character that will move according to the bone. And the bone in the character is made up of joints. So we will create joints that behave like the bone in a human being, and we will make the hose move according to those joints. So under this menu up here, we have what's called rigging. And in rigging, we have the skeleton. That's where we create the bones and the joints. And we have the skin menu, where we create the bind skin. So first of all, we want to create the joints, and we need a joint in each end of our hose. So we will do create joints, and I can actually go to a 2D view because it's more precise to where it lets me put them. So I'll put one basically just there. And if I just click now, I will get the joint chain. That is not what we want. We want two independent joints, one in each end. So I need to press enter or the key Y to complete the tool for this joint and be able to set a new joint in this end, like so, and then press enter. Now I can move these joints to a more precise position. I can use again holding down the V key and move it so it snaps in the center there. And we will do the same here. We select the joint, hold down the V key and make it snap to the center over there. And when we look at this in this view, we can see that this joint is up there, and that is joint 1, and that is joint 2 down there in the correct position. So now we can bind this skin. To do that, we select the hose, then we select the two joints by holding down Shift, like so, and like so. I could select them in the outliner as well, of course. And then we go to Skin, Bind Skin. That's it. Now we have the skin bind. So what will happen now is that if I move this joint, the hose will move. But you can see it might not move entirely perfect. So let's get everything back here and move the joint 2, the one that's down here. Let's put that in a group together with this section of the cedar. So I shift select that one. So now I selected this poly surface. I can rename it. This is the right arm of the cedar. This is the joint for the right arm. And I'll select that one, and I'll select that one, and I'll make a group of those. Now, what we need to do now is move the pivot point of this group to this hinge here, which is the point where this thing will rotate. So I'll press the D key to enter pivot mode. That's as close as we want to get now. And we'll make a big pivot. Anyway, so we have the group here. This object is this guy, so we will move this into the group as well. So now, when I move this, you can see that the hose is attached to where it should, and when I move this part, the hose will move and bend together with it. And even if I should move it in any direction, like so, it moves and bends. So that's the bind skin thing. Now, if we want to make this a little bit better, so now the bonus part enters. You're basically done by now, but if you want to make it more perfect, you can actually do that. That is done by painting skin weights. So we go to the skin menu and to paint skin weights, and we use the options box to get the paint skin tool settings. This now shows us the weights for, in this case, the joint that we are interested in, the one that's connected to the moving part, in this case the right arm. White means 100% and black in this case means 0%. And since we have two independent joints only on this object, they are complete opposites of each other. So joint 1 will look completely the opposite. And in all of these sections in the middle here, total sum of the weights in any given piece of this object is going to be 1 or 100%. here there's only black and 100% white, and in this case here's 100% white, and on the other joint it will be 100% black, and then it moves. So what we want to do to give this a more perfect weight distribution, which is why it not necessarily bends as perfect as you want, is to actually first of all define how many sections do I want to be at 100% or 0% in the other end, which basically in this case means it will not move at all. So if I want the hose to be not moving for these 4 first sections, I can start by making sure I use select here, and I use the joint we're interested in, and I select these 4 sections. The first one here, second, third, fourth. And I'll make sure that I set the value of 1 on these. Oops, so I need to select the joint. So I make sure to set that as 1. And in the other end, I'll do the same thing. 1, 2, 3, 4, all the way down there. These 4. For this one, I'll set to 0. So if I look at that, it will be that it's pure black all the way there, and it's pure white over there. Now I will calculate what I should set on the other sections. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 sections that I want to set the value at. Those should be divided between 0 to 1. I think I said 12, didn't I? I think so. So we can use just a small spreadsheet and do this. So I'll enter 12 here. And I can see that I will enter 0.923 and so forth down here. And we'll start by doing this. So we start by 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We'll start with this section, and that will be 0.923. Oops, need to select that one. 0.923. Then we select the next one, and that should be 846. 0.846. And this is the last one, 0.077. And then there's the 4 ones that is at 0. So if we look at this now, this is what the weight distribution looks like. If we close this and we bring everything back, and we look if we can notice any difference, I'll select the group, rotate, and we'll see, well, possibly a little bit worse because the hose is a bit rigid on the first part here. It's nice that it's rigid on this part, but maybe I should have a weight distribution that goes closer to this end of the hose in order to make that look better. We can see what it looks like in this case. And maybe maybe it's too rigid in this section as well in order to, if I wanted to bend in this rotation. But now you saw the how you do it and how you set the weights precisely and exact distribution along the hoses sections. Most typically, if you have very long hoses, you just define a short piece of it where it needs to bend, and you should sort of define where you want it to bend by actually looking at in this case we can see that it bends here, so I could more or less be satisfied with putting weights on this section and having 0 at this end and 1 at this end. Then it goes much faster to define the weights, and it will obviously then just bend at this section. But I would say that the thicker hose you have, like in this case. The more precise you should be. If you have smaller hoses like these ones that only bend when these seed units actually move, then you can be much faster and just define a sort of weight distribution on this small section and nothing else. So hopefully this was useful on how to create a hose and how to skin bind it so that it can actually move when objects like the cedar arm or something that moves. Okay.